Hello, good morning everyone. Today is a good day. So I hope everybody is enjoying this morning and finding some solace and solidarity in this early morning time. I see Elizabeth is on. Good morning, Elizabeth. Today it's here in Minneapolis. It's bright blue skies, and there's the word of a warm-up. So it'll be nice to be able to spend more time outdoors, doing various activities, especially walking and exercising. So hope everybody gets a chance to enjoy the outdoors today that is in this area. Today, I'd like to share some reflections on, with regard to independent will. I'd like to share some reflections on how we exercise our independent will through language. We've spent a number of days talking about how we do that mentally, specifically with the principles of project planning. And I really, in experience, I really feel like that is a really powerful way to bring our ideas to, in a systematic, intentional way, bring them into reality. I think that's a really powerful way to do that on the mental side of life. And there's this other aspect of how we really enter into and exercise that inner freedom of independent will, and that's through language. And what's really powerful about that is it's this sometimes seemingly invisible way that we enter into life, and we let our intentions be known, both to ourselves as well as to other people. And to be honest, before I was introduced to this, these concepts in my coaching training years ago, it was just something that was really invisible to me, completely invisible. I didn't have the understanding of this part of language and what is called illocutionary acts that we all take, and it fascinated me. It fascinated me when I started to understand that there was this whole aspect of how we as human beings coordinate and invite each other into action through our words. I just, before I had learned this, this was completely invisible to me. And when I first started to learn it, and it fascinated me and caught my attention immediately. And still, when I think about it or reflect on it, or I'm sharing it or teaching it, it still galvanizes my attention and my excitement, because I think this is really something that everybody should be aware of. Everybody should have some understanding with, and have some practice with, and some skill. And so when I was introduced to these illocutionary acts, which are in the coaching world, are called speech acts. And this illocutionary acts, the bigger work, is by an author by the name of John Searle. And so you can look that up. It's a heavy read on the philosophy of language, and so not for the light of heart, as far as, or the light of mind, because you get into that book and it's a deep dive. And then there's the work of Fernando Flores, who really brought a lot of this work into business and the coaching world, and on the real practical side of things. And so I was introduced to it in my coaching training at the Strozzi Institute many years ago. And it's really changed my life, because what it allows me to do is it allows me to exercise this my human freedom, and your human freedom of independent will in conversation and in language. And I have a way that I can bring my intentions forward in a very self-aware, mindful way, to be part of how negotiations happen, how the conversation goes. And so that's what I'd like to talk a little bit about today, is, how do we coordinate in language? What are these illocutionary acts? What's this fancy word? And so I just wrote down a few here that really tie into illocutionary acts, and they are declarations, promises, suggestions, warnings, requests, offers, assessments and feedback, assertions, when we say yes, when we say no, when we negotiate or counter offer, when we insist and take a stand for something we care about, and when we, in a really dignified and powerful way, when we quit and leave a situation because we just know it's not working. And when we can really understand that each one of these illocutionary acts or speech acts that we coordinate with others in language, and we can be self-aware and have an understanding of them, we can really start to take our creative impulses and the things that we see as possible in this world, and we can start to enter into relationships with others, and really with our words move in a very skillful, intentional way. Because usually our creativity and the things that we want to bring into the world eventually means we're going to start to develop new relationships or new conversations with other people as we bring them into the world. And if we can not only bring intention in with the process of planning it, but be skillful in how we coordinate resources and partnerships in our language, in my experience, that really helps us to bring the idea into the world, helps other people through these illocutionary acts or these speech acts. This can really help us find the resources and find the partnerships that are going to make it and help it come into reality. So that's really the what I'd like to bring forward. And this the insights here are that declarations, in one way to understand this group of speech acts like declarations, promises, requests, offers, assessments, assertions, is you could see them as a bundle or a series of commitments. So you can think of a declaration as a commitment to a future possibility, and you can see a promise as a commitment to producing satisfaction. You can see a request or an offer as a commitment to a future action. So you can also see an assessment, like when you offer somebody feedback or an assessment, you can see that as a commitment in the relationship to intimacy, them getting to know you, you sharing your perception of things, and a future possibility that you can be intentional and aware of. From a self-aware perspective, you can be intentional about, I'm about to offer somebody feedback. or I'm not going to offer them an assessment, and I can, at a self-aware levels, ask myself, for the sake of what am I going to offer them this? Is it something that is going to be useful, and it's going to move the relationship or the project forward, or am I just doing this to vent? And if we can access our self-awareness, in some cases, if we ask ourselves that question, we may not offer that assessment because really we're just venting, or it's for some other reason that's really not going to build up the relationship or move the project forward. But again, that takes self-awareness, which is the very first thing we explored when we started convening and meeting for these live reflections and posts almost 4 weeks ago. So self-awareness, it always comes back to that human freedom of self-awareness. It's all grounded in that. And then also, an assertion or stating a fact that it's a commitment to acknowledging a reality that already exists. We're saying this is a reality, this is a fact, and we're organizing around that opinion. And if I assert this, and another person does not agree with my assertion, well, that's what we have to really face into, that can open up a whole new conversation around, well, what do you see? How do you see it? If you don't see that as a fact, how do you see the world? And that's where we can start to make that blend and start to see the world as they see it. Doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but start to see the world as they see it, to help to grow understanding, and perhaps we can come to a creative third alternative where we can both influence each other. If there's a sense of trust and confidence in the relationship, that we can start to maybe organize around a new reality that neither one of us was seeing fully. So that's those are some just ways to see those illocutionary acts, and then also this group of illocutionary acts around accepts, or when we say yes, or declines when we say no, counter offers when we're negotiating, insists, when we're taking a stand for what we care about, when we quit and we realize that this isn't going anywhere, and we disengage and we acknowledge that it's not going to work, and we, in a mindful, present, dignified way, we declare it's not going to work, and we move away from the relationship and create space. So one way to understand those is as a series of promises we're making. So, for example, when I say, with those that illocutionary act of saying no, that's a promise not to do something. And so if I say no or decline and to somebody, and then 10 minutes later I feel guilty and I find myself doing what I said no to, I've broken my promise to myself. I've broken my promise to them, and I've broken my promise to myself. And so that's another way to start to reframe mentally, saying no is as a promise not to do something. And so a no isn't just standing up for yourself. It's the making of a promise to yourself and to another, and then to hold that promise by not doing it. And in my experience, that's often not how saying no is framed. When people say no, it has a whole different story behind it, mental, emotional story behind it. So this is an alternative way to start to enter into saying no and understanding it as a promise. And And accept or saying yes is a promise to do something. So following through, I think that's more generally accepted, that when I say yes, I'm maybe not explicitly, people don't necessarily say, hey, this is a promise to do something, but I think that's more widely accepted, at least from what I've experienced. To make a counter offer or to negotiate is, you can see that as a promise. A promise, I won't do this, what you initially suggested, and I'm open and I will do this. I won't do this, but I will do this. So there's a promise not to do something, and yet there's still an openness and an interest in having a shared future with this person, and an openness to that creative process of finding out, where might that be. And so I think that's really powerful to see these illocutionary acts and these speech acts as starting to frame them as a series of promises that we're making to ourselves and to another, and that can really take some of the cultural sting out of ones that are hard for us or in some cases forbidden for us. Some people, they cannot say no. It's very hard for them. Some people, I think in all my years of working with people in personal change and in the coaching world, I think the hardest one here in the Midwest is saying no, and culturally, and I think the capacity to have a powerful quit, to be able to quit and say and declare it. Say, hey, this I can tell what I care about and what you care about. They don't jive. They don't work together. I feel my commitment. I feel your commitment. They aren't working, and to just pause, disengage from the struggle, and face that person with respect and say, I can tell, where I'm going and where you're going. They aren't moving together, and we're not able to find a way to move together right now. So I'm a quit for now, and I wish you well, and I hope we can come back at some other point. And then the ability to then center yourself and then walk away and be able to be with that distancing, and so those are the two that I've noticed in the Midwest that are the most challenging. And so I think it's really powerful to be able to understand, have an understanding of these, that there are actually illocutionary acts. First of all, have a word for it. Then understand what they are, and understand at their essence what they are as a series of commitments and promises we're making in language. And then understanding that not only are we, uttering these words, but the self-awareness to realize that our language lands. It lands in us and in other people, literally in their body and in our bodies as a felt sense. So when we say no, that no isn't just a conceptual no that comes in to an impersonal computer and is registered. No, the no comes, we hear the no, we see the no in their body language, and then it lands on us and we feel the no. Something changes. It can shift our mood, our emotions, our sensations. All those things that we're practicing on becoming self-aware in our meditation, we can start to become aware of them as we coordinate in language with others. And so I think it's really powerful because words really do matter. And they matter because they shift mood, they shift emotion, they shift the relationship. And if we can learn to use them skillfully, we can use them to bring our creativity and into the world and build relationships, strengthen relationships, build our own dignity, as well as build up the dignity of others with whom we're in relationship. And that takes self-awareness, that takes practice, and first and foremost, it takes awareness. Everything starts with self-awareness. After there's self-awareness, then we have choice. And after we have choice, then we can start to cultivate skill and develop real competency and mastery in each domain that we feel called to develop in ourselves. And this goes for any domain, whether it's relational intelligence, emotional intelligence, academic intelligence, financial intelligence. It all starts with self-awareness, becoming aware and centering ourselves, knowing what we care about, being clear on the vision of what future success looks like, holding that vision, and holding that vision every step along the way. And so language and these illocutionary acts are no different, and they're powerful ways to exercise our human freedom of independent will. I should say one way that I think that we do that very powerfully and very intentionally, especially when we're bringing an idea or a project into the world, is through requests and offers. For some people, making a request or an offer, that's really edgy for them. The moment that they want to make a request or an offer, and they feel that inside, it can be very hard for some people to actually utter that, because maybe they have a belief. They have a belief that making a request or an offer of another person is too pushy, or it's disruptive, whatever their story is. So they never make the offer, they never make the request, and so they never, through those illocutionary acts, they never initiate new action into the world. They don't initiate and mobilize people and welcome them in to align with them towards this project or this idea or this vision they have. And so the inability to make offers and requests, especially when bringing our creative ideas into the world, it can be a real limiter, a real limiting factor. So just thinking about that, requests and offers. And one way to understand that, and I've been now working in some aspect of sales in all the areas that I've worked in my career, and my experience in the world of sales and marketing is the number one reason why people, when they're new, they won't ask, is because they won't ask for a sale, for example, that's a request, or make an offer, is because a fear of being rejected. And that's the number one reason that certainly when I first started in my career, that was my biggest thing. I didn't want to be told no, because it had all these negative stories or challenging stories around it. And the biggest thing that what helped me shift my thinking with regard to these illocutionary acts is start opening up to the idea and starting to believe that when someone says no to my request or my offer, they're not saying no to me personally, me as a human being. they're saying no to my offer or my request. In other words, so I detached that personalization from it, and then I also honored that. I framed it as they're not only just saying no to my offer or my request, not me as a human being and what I stand for. They're also making a promise. Not when they say no, they're promising me not to do something. So to this day, when I make an offer or I make a request of somebody along this vision that I see, and invite them to share this future, and I hear them say no or them to decline, what immediately comes into me is, oh, they're saying no to my offer or my request, and I accept that. And the next phrase that comes is, oh, they're promising me not to do something. They're making a promise to me not to engage with this request or not to engage with this offer, and I respect the promise that they're making. And as a matter of fact, if these days in my life, if someone tells me no, and I find them doing it anyway, I'll pause and say, I thought you said you weren't going to do that. I thought you weren't going to go on this venture with me. I thought you weren't going to take this action that I asked of you. And it gives me a moment to pause, and I'll ask them, why are you doing that? You promised me you wouldn't do that. What changed? And really what I'm asking is, I'm inquiring is, are they breaking a promise to themselves? Are they breaking their promise to themselves and to me not to do something? So when I ask them that, I'm checking in with their integrity to themselves. And when I've the handful of times that I've done that, wow, that's really powerful. That has been a relationship builder, because all of a sudden I'm showing care and attention to the boundary that they set, and on a subconscious level, they know that I heard their no, I heard their boundary, and I'm as a caring friend or colleague or partner, I'm asking, are you holding that boundary firm, or are you giving yourself away a bit here? So there, understanding speech acts can. That's why there's so much intimacy in these speech acts, because we are revealing ourselves. As we're revealing our character, we're revealing our strengths, we're revealing our weaknesses, and we are. If you're listening, we're revealing so much about ourselves as we communicate in language. So that's my reflection. Is we exercise our independent will also through these speech acts that we're in every day. It's like without some self-awareness, we're just in this soup that we're moving in, but we until we take a moment to become self-aware, we can just be doing it, but completely unconsciously, and we might be doing it in a way that's causing challenges or breakdowns. And so this moment of reflection can be a self-assessment of what area of these speech acts or these illocutionary acts is it time to refine or develop in a new way, so that I can show up differently and coordinate and communicate with others in a different way. So that was a journey into language, and how we use language, and how we enter into conversations and enter into relationships with courage and with confidence to start to direct attention and energy around a shared future. So with that, I'd like to just start to begin with self-awareness practice of starting to move towards our meditation today. And so I just invite you to check in with your mood. Notice what your mood is right now. Right now my mood is alert and eager. Notice what your mood is. And notice what the most dominant sensation is on a self-awareness level. Are you warm, cold, expanding, contracting, buzzing, tingling? Heavy, light, rough, smooth, tall, compressed, narrow, wide, forward, backward, centered. And again, we're meeting that self-awareness, that somatic self-awareness, without judgment, without attachment, and without resistance. It's just information coming in to our field of awareness to help us understand and navigate this moment. Even notice your breath right now. Notice if it's expansive, if it's shallow, somewhere in between. Even as I feel into my breath here, I notice it's pretty expansive. And this is not the breath that I control, but the involuntary breath, the breath that just breathes you almost. And then let's begin by relaxing our eyes, relaxing our jaw. The jaw's on a hinge. Relaxing our neck. Bring our shoulders up, clench our fists, and drop your shoulders. Bring your shoulders up. Drop them down. Relax your chest, opening your chest. Imagine like you're opening up butterfly wings, or you can imagine you're opening up a book. Use that imagery. Relaxing your diaphragm, large breathing muscle, our largest breathing muscle here, attached to our lower rib cage. We can spend a whole day locked up there if we aren't paying attention, affecting our mood, affecting our thoughts. And relaxing our belly, softening our belly. Breathing from our belly. Relaxing our hips. And we can, like our shoulders, contract and relax there. So contracting our hips up and in, almost like we're pulling ourselves up off the chair if you're seated, and then letting go and feel. We can also spend an entire day with our hips, the muscles in our hips locked up, and we don't even know it. So pulling up and in. And exhale. Relaxing our thighs, fronts and back. relaxing our knees, our calves and our shins, our feet and our toes. Feeling our feet connected to the ground, feeling that sense of grounding as we bring our attention there. Making space in our body, starting to gently move out of our thinking part of ourself into the feeling part of ourself, our intuitive body. And then let's begin by centering in our length. So take a moment here to center in length. So we're straightening in our vertical line. We're straightening and we're settling. Feeling ourselves as a bridge between our spirituality and our physicality. A bridge between heaven and earth. And as we feel into our vertical line from the inside out, from the somatic point of view, use your imagination. Connect to a spiritual vision that you have or a creative project that you have of what's possible. And at the same time, feeling your feet planted firmly on the ground so that you have the ability to have a vision and you're connected to your body, a body that can take action. We're balancing out the capacity for spirituality and physicality. And the purpose of that is so that we aren't so spiritual that we have these inspirations that just evaporate and we have no action, and we don't want to be so practical in our body that we can't allow ourselves to dream. We want to bring in and integrate both. Taking a deep breath in with our attention and our imagination. Take a deep breath in through the crown of our head. Pull that breath through. Exhale out through your feet and hands. Taking a deep breath in through your feet and hands. Exhaling through the crown of your head. One more time, deep breath in through the crown of your head. Pull that breath through, exhale out through your feet and hands. And just take a moment to feel yourself centered in your length. And what's possible when you're centered in your length. Then let's bring our attention to our width from left to right. Left hand on heart center, right hand on our belly. Imagine this posture as a self-embrace, reminding us to take care of ourselves and recalling ways that we've intentionally developed ourselves today or in the past few days, developing ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. That cultivation of those four dimensions: to live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. Also feeling our personal boundaries and how we can take that word and that concept of boundaries and we can ground that in the body by feeling the boundaries, actually feeling the boundaries of our skin, the amount of space we take up in the room, feeling our clothes at the edge of our skin. So we're starting to tie in the concept of a boundary to a felt sense of a boundary. do we say yes to? What do we say no to? What do we renegotiate with those boundaries? What are we a stand for? What are our core values that if they are disrupted or breached, that we are going to take actions and use our language, our illocutionary acts, to be in line with those boundaries. Then let's start to extend out a little bit. Maybe just extend out into the room a little bit. Open up your field of awareness while still feeling yourself, and extending to someone else that may be in the vicinity. Maybe extend to a four-legged, a cat or a dog. Extending, starting to include them in your field of awareness, including nature, including the skies, the grasses, this beautiful tree that's off to my right here. Really extending out in this horizontal plane. And similar to our length, we're creating balance here, balance between our commitment to ourselves and our commitment to others. We don't want to be so focused on ourselves that we exclude other people, nature. We don't want to exclude that and become so self-centered. And we don't want to become so others-centered that we lose ourselves. And it's easy to do either, to organize ourselves around either extreme. In this practice, we're just learning how to feel ourselves, feel our needs, feel our boundaries while extending to others and finding that balance. Then extending out a little further, and extending out, see if we can extend out to someone who's hard for us to extend to. Maybe find somebody that is extending some compassion to a declared enemy or opponent, someone you don't trust. You can still have a healthy boundary with them and keep them at a healthy distance and still extend a little grace and love and compassion to them. And just see what that does to your mental, emotional state. And then let's bring our attention and energy to our left hand. Take a deep breath in. Pull that breath through the center of your body and exhale out your right hand. Take a deep breath in from your right hand. Pull that breath through. Exhale out your left hand. And one more time, using your attention and your imagination, take a deep breath in from your left hand. Pull that breath through the dark space of your body. Imagine that. Exhale out through your right hand. Centering in your width, your somatic width. Finding this felt sense of your balance between your commitment to yourself and your commitment to others. We can feel that. We can think that, and we can feel that. Bring your arms down. Feeling that centeredness you've created in your length, in your width. And then let's start to feel into our somatic depth, our relationship to past, present, and future. Let's start with our back body. So just leaning back a little bit and starting to imagine and connect to all those experiences that have shaped you, the wisdom of your experience, and then slowly leaning forward just a bit, and as you take that body posture, connecting to your inspired visions of the future, inspired projects, your longings and yearnings for personal growth, aspects of yourself you want to start to cultivate, especially those aspects of yourself that are recurrent, they keep coming back to you. a cultivation of courage in some area of your life, and it just keeps coming to you. That's a yearning, that's a longing, it's a noticing. Leaning back a bit and feeling into our back and feeling our history, connecting to all those experiences and ways of being in the world that have served us very well and have gotten us to this point. And also become curious about what are the ways that you show up and it has served you well up to this point, and you're starting to sense that maybe that way of being in the world, that part of your personality, is no longer useful. It got you here, may have served you well for 20 years, and maybe that way of showing up in the world and in your life is no longer exciting, no longer gives you life, or maybe it's causing you recurrent problems and breakdowns and conflicts every time you show up that way. And that's an invitation for self-awareness and to consider maybe it's time to let that part of yourself go. Letting that part of yourself go with gratitude, thanking it for all that it's done for you, and setting it aside, opening up space for some other way of being in the world, for some other way of showing up, something that's more exciting and something that's more life-giving, something that builds more connection, more safety, more dignity, helps you make a bigger contribution. So let's center ourselves here in our depth here, becoming aware of the past and perhaps what it may be time to let go of. And as we become aware of that, starting to imagine and open up to, if we let that part of ourselves go, what's possible, what can we open up to, who can we become. And let's find a centered place. In other words, there's an effortlessness here in our depth. All the weight is down through our bones, through our skeletal system, finding that right relationship with gravity. And with your attention and your imagination, take a deep breath in about 10 feet in front of you. Pull that breath through, exhale out through your back. Again, with your attention and your imagination, take a deep breath in from your back body. Pull that breath through, exhale out into your front. And then one more time, using your imagination, your attention, take a deep breath in, breathing in your future, if you will. And exhaling out into your past. Finding center in our depth. Feeling the wisdom of our experience at our back. We feel our inspired visions and our longings that are pulling us forward, guiding us like a compass. And we're collecting all our power and all our presence into this moment, the only moment that ever really is, the present moment. Let's bring attention and energy to our right hand. So if I'm feeling the temperature of my hand, I'm feeling the shape of my hand, I feel my 5 fingers, I'm going to place that just below our navel. As I feel my hand here, I feel the temperature of my hand on my skin, I feel the shape of my hand, and I'm allowing that to help me to drop into my center. In other words, having my hand here is helping me drop further out of my thinking self and into my feeling self, into my intuitive self, my emotional self, my bodily self. Let's take 3 deep breaths here. So a deep breath into our center. And exhale. And a second breath, a deep breath in to your felt sense of purpose. What are you here to do? What are you made for? And a third breath into the mystery, all that is beyond our human knowing. Take a moment to feeling for mood and for sensation. Invite you to close your eyes, and we'll begin our meditation for this morning. As we begin, just as a reminder that though we are only sitting for 1 minute, if you feel the longing to sit longer, just pass on the final chime and my invitation to close, and just keep sitting for as long as it feels right for you. So dropping into your body, eyes are closed. Let's set your intention. Remind yourself, for the sake of what, that you're doing this meditation and this contemplative practice. In other words, tie a sense or a story of care into this physical practice so they become one. My body, you are an animal whose appropriate behavior is concentration and discipline. In effort of an athlete, of a saint, and of a yogi, well trained, you will become for me a gate through which I leave myself, and a gate through which I enter myself, a plumb line to the center of the earth, and a cosmic ship to Jupiter. My body, you are an animal for whom ambition is right. Splendid possibilities are open to us. My body, you are an animal whose appropriate behavior is concentration and discipline, an effort of an athlete, of a saint, and of a yogi. Well trained, you will become for me a gate through which I leave myself, and a gate through which I enter myself, a plumb line to the center of the earth, and a cosmic ship to Jupiter. My body, you are an animal for whom ambition is right. Splendid possibilities are open to us. And as we close our practice today, remind yourself again, for the sake of what? And tie this practice to something you care about. And then on your next exhale, slowly begin to move your arms and legs. And then very slowly and very gently, begin to open your eyes and let the outside world come back in again. Take a moment to notice your mood right now, and if your mood has shifted, notice if the most dominant sensation has shifted. And notice if the thoughts that you're thinking have shifted. From this space, what's possible today? What's possible in this moment that wasn't possible when we began? I invite us all into that inquiry. So I want to just say how grateful I am for the time shared this morning with everybody. Darlene, Henrietta, Kathy, Elizabeth, I see Ryan, Sheena and Chad, and Jeanette. And thank you for sharing the time this morning. And my hope and my prayer is that this time in reflection around independent will, one of our human freedoms, and exploring our capacity to coordinate in language through our illocutionary acts, these speech acts. My hope is that all of our awareness is heightened and attuned, and we're more skillful as we coordinate in our language today. Tomorrow I'm going to share some reflections around independent will with regard to how do we do that physically. We talked about how we do that mentally with the principles of project planning. How do we do that with language, with illocutionary acts, interpersonally? And tomorrow I'd like to bring a reflection on how do we do that with our body. And in some ways, we're doing all three all at once. So I recognize that when we're engaging with language, that we do that through our body, and there are nonverbals that go along with that, and our mind is engaged. And sometimes it can be very helpful on something that is so woven together to discuss it or reflect on it in isolation for the convenience of learning. And then after we put our attention on it individually, knitting it back together into the indivisible whole that it truly is. So that's my intention there. So wishing you all a wonderful day. Thank you for sharing the time, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye.